My microphone picks up everything. I don't know if you just heard that gurgle in my throat. Welcome to Whiskey is a Journey. My name is Peter Fasciano, and in today's journey, we are going to head north of my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, and we're going to head up to Stranahan's in Denver, Colorado. Let's go ahead and pour it, nose it, taste it, and talk about it. And if you guys stick around later in the video, I'm going to go ahead and compare this to another whiskey in my collection. So Stranahan's is coming in with a couple of expressions. This one just so happens to be their American single malt that is finished in Oloroso sherry barrels. This is coming in at 47% ABV. They're saying that it's natural colored, even though it doesn't say it on the bottle. I did a couple of article researches, and it's telling me on some of those articles that they're using natural color. This is also non-chill filtered. It's aged at a minimum of 7 years, although this is a non-aged statement whiskey. This is also bottle 2,999 of batch number 12. Now they're saying that this is out of the province of Cadiz, and this is the Andalusia, Spain, Oloroso sherry cask. Now there's going to be a difference between a whiskey that is totally, completely matured in a sherry cask and something that is finished in a sherry cask. If you guys are new into the whiskey world, I understand that sometimes you're not going to dive into the whiskey. But if you're trying to dissect this, it's important to do a little bit of research first. And I've only gotten into drinking whiskey since January of 2022. So I'm relatively new to the whiskey tasting and trying to dissect them. But understanding a little bit about what barrels do to a whiskey, sherry casks, whether it's matured in it or finished in it, the Oloroso sherry casks themselves are going to impart some sort of dark fruit like figs, dates, raisins, and possibly give you a nutty flavor. So knowing that before you actually even nose or taste this, you might have your brain starting to think, well, this is going to be dark fruit. So let's go ahead and try to pick those things out. And definitely on the nose, I'm getting dark fruits. I'm getting the raisins. I'm getting more fig in this than anything else. Let's go ahead and taste it. My microphone picks up everything. I don't know if you just heard that gurgle in my throat. And that's interesting. So on the taste, I'm getting a blast of raisins, and the fig kind of falls to the back. It doesn't coat or stick to the tongue very much, but I'm definitely getting a dark fruit flavor there, lingering a little bit longer. The finish seems to be very short with me. I do get a little bit of tang in the back of my tongue, or just on my tongue in general. So, and it's not a bad tang. Just like my previous video, I talked a little bit about the barrel influence, and maybe the wood is that tanginess that I'm getting on my tongue. I'm going to go with that for now. But this is relatively pleasing to me. I wouldn't say that it's one of my best American single malts, but it's definitely not bad. Taking a look at a little bit more about Stranahan's, it seems to be that most distilleries have some sort of backstory. And in this case, there was a volunteer firefighter, Jess Graber, that was responding to a barn fire that was George Stranahan. George Stranahan apparently was a local brewery or a local brewer. And after they got done, dealing with the fire, they got to talking, and they both had a shared interest in whiskey, and that's how Stranahan's came to be. Now, back in 2006 is when they first started distilling and first started producing, I believe, in 2007 or 8. But since that time, in 2010, Stranahan's was sold to Proximo Spirits, and since then, George is retired, and Jess Graber ended up starting his own project, Tin Cup. And if you guys are familiar with this jigger, this comes on, I think, pretty much every bottle of Stranahan's. And then if you're also familiar with Tin Cup, this has carried over to the Tin Cup as well. And I believe it's a little bit shorter, but that's also on top of that bottle as well. Now let's go ahead and bring in the Macallan 12-year. This one's actually matured completely in sherry Oloroso casks. This one is from Juarez, Spain, instead of Andalusia. So I'm not actually comparing these side by side. I just want to see if there is a difference in the actual sherry matured compared to the sherry finished, and both in Oloroso. So let's go ahead and take a look at this really quick. Yeah, right up front, two completely different nosings. This seems to be a little bit sweeter on the nose. I'm not really getting a blast of fig individually or raisin individually. I'm getting more of a dark fruit explosion. Let's go ahead and take a taste. Okay, much more subdued. After going from this to this seems to have kind of like sharp edges. I don't know if this makes sense, but when you do taste it, it seems like it speckles your tongue and it speckles the roof of your mouth. It doesn't seem like it's well-rounded, but when you take a sip of this with a 12-year, it just kind of flows over everything and then just slowly reveals all of those dark fruit flavors. Two completely different whiskeys. They're both good, so I'm not going to say this one is better than this one. This is just one person's opinion. You could like the Macallan. You could absolutely like this more. It depends on you. So just keep that in mind. But this is definitely something that I will be reviewing later on. I had mentioned earlier that I just got into drinking whiskey in January of 2022. Since that point, I have purchased around 100, well, not around, I know exactly. I've purchased 103 bottles of Scotch, Japanese, American bourbon, American whiskey, American single malts. I have a whole bunch, and I'm just completely committed to this channel and starting to review and starting to dissect all of these individual whiskeys. So if you're not a subscriber and you think that you're going to want to look at or watch these reviews, go ahead and subscribe down below. Turn on that bell notification so when I go live with the video, you'll be notified. If you are familiar with Stranahan's and their sherry cask finish, go ahead and put some comments down below. Get a discussion going. If you know somebody in the whiskey world that might be interested in this video, go ahead and share it with them. So let's go ahead and add water to this, since I've added water to everything else. I don't think the Stranahan's needs any water, but again, just for consistency's sake, since I've done this with all of the others, I'm going to do it to this as well. No need to shake it around. Just go ahead and swirl it in the glass. Let it coat. Going back to the nose with water, not as powerful, not as strong. Let's go ahead and go for the palate. Slightly sweeter, maybe a little bit more of a punch, more of sharpness on the tongue. I like it better without water. Now it's looking like the master distiller or the head distiller, Owen Martin. They have a couple of variations of the single malts. I'm going to look at my notes here so I don't leave anything out. They have the sherry finish single malt. They have an original single malt that comes in more of a orangish yellow label. They also have a Blue Peak and a Snowflake, and I believe the Snowflake is a annual release, one time a year. And if you saw my last video, they're coming out with, or they did come out with, a 10-year-old. And that was one of my questions from my previous video. Do you guys know any other American single malt companies or distilleries that are actually producing an aged statement single malt whiskey? As far as I know, these are the only distillers that are doing that. And they've come out with, I think, batch number 2 of their 10-year-old Mountain Angel. So Mountain Angel 10-year-old, age statement right on the label. I believe they do have an experimental line, and their most recent one is a special release. It's an American single malt finished in tequila barrels. So that's very interesting as well. If you guys are interested in taking a look at Stranahan's, is coming in around $76. I believe I've seen this in Total Wine and More, but not Bevmo. So take that for what it is. I'm going to leave it there. Enjoy your journey. Like, subscribe, share, post some comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Yeah, sherry cask finished. Ooh, that smells really boozy now. And sherry cask matured, the Macallan 12. Both very good, both very different. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.